still talking about some of this background information to the English Bibles. And getting into the 1611 edition, it starts, in his letter of October 5th, 1568, to Cecil, forwarding a copy of the Bishop's Bible for presentation to the Queen, Archbishop Parker writes with obvious timidity, "The printer hath honestly done his diligence. If your honor would obtain of the Queen's Highness that this edition might be licensed and only commended in public reading in churches to draw to one uniformity," and in a footnote it says, "to the exclusion of any other." So again, just kind of showing that control that the Church of England and the monarchy had over over the translations that was being used and so forth. Interpret the evidence as we may, the fact must steadily be borne in mind that throughout the reign of Elizabeth, the production of editions of the Bible was always a controlled production, and when we come to consider the fortunes of the version of 1611, it will be well to remember that the control still went on. Again, it plainly says what I've been extrapolating from the evidence. Okay. Alright, now here, this is the rules to be observed in the translation of the Bible. This was given by King James, okay, when they were setting up all the translators and everything, getting ready to put together the 1611. Rule number 1. The ordinary Bible read in the church, commonly called the Bishop's Bible, to be followed, and as little altered as the truth of the original will permit. Rule number 3. The old ecclesiastical words to be kept. Example, the word church, not to be translated congregation, etc. Rule number 6. No marginal notes at all to be affixed, but only for the explanation of the Hebrew or Greek words, which cannot, without some circumlocution, so briefly and fitly be expressed in the text. I highlighted that because, I mean, the evidence is just overwhelming that the 1611 translation, when you're pulling from Greek and Hebrew, Latin, any language, I mean, if we did it today from Japanese to English, there's not always going to be a direct one-for-one correlation. This word automatically translates to this word. Because not only do you have to deal with the word itself, you have to deal with the context of the sentence, you have to deal with the context of the passage. I mean, so you may have a few words you can choose from to translate this one word. And so to bring out the proper sense of what the original had, you choose one over the other. And, sometimes there's some flexibility with that. Anyway, I just want to point that out because they expected that. And they used that with the King James. This facsimile, which I'll get to later, has examples of that. Okay? Rule number 14. Getting back to the rules the king set down for the translator. These translations to be used when they agree better with the text than the Bishop's Bible. And the ones that they have in here is Tyndale's, Matthew's, Coverdale's, Whitchurch's, and Geneva. So, they weren't restricted to the Greek and Hebrew. They were, first of all, they had to stick with the Bishop's Bible as much as they could. Secondly, they could pull from these former English translations if they agreed better with the text. So just want to, just kind of point those facts out. As is well known, no authority has ever been discovered for the words appointed to be read in churches, which appear on the title page of all editions, nor for the phrase, the authorized version, by which the Bible is usually known. When, however, this point was raised at the time of the revision of 1881, Lord Chancellor Selborne wrote to the Times, June 3, 1881, giving it as his opinion that if the version was appointed to be read in churches, as is expressly stated on the title page of 1611, at the time of its first publication, nothing is more probable than that this may have been done by order and council. If so, the authentic record of that order would now be lost, because all the council books and registers from the year 1600 to 1613 inclusive were destroyed by a fire at Whitehall on the 12th of January 1618. Nothing, in my opinion, is less likely than that the king's printer should have taken upon himself, whether with view to his own profit or otherwise, to issue the book, being as it was a translation unquestionably made by the king's commandment to correct defects in earlier versions, of which the use had been authorized by royal injunctions, etc., in preceding reigns, with a title page exerting that it was appointed to be read in churches, if the fact were not really so. So just want to point out that there came a time, because of that control that the Church of England and the monarchy wanted to have over a uniform Bible in churches and people's hands, that it actually became that none can be printed unless they were licensed by the king to do so. And so they, in order to show that it's licensed, they had to print these things. That authorized version, it's not the first, the 1611 is not the first one that had that. I want to say the Bishop's Bible. One or two of the previous ones had that also, authorized by the king. As far as ecclesiastical politics were concerned, the task of the revisers was, with the smallest possible amount of disturbance, to harmonize the bishop's version with the Geneva, wherever the latter was more correct, and the desire to do this accounts for the vast majorities of the changes in which in any way affect the sense. The revisers were concerned also, although pride prevented any reference to the fact, to meet the objections which had been urged in the preface and notes to the Reims New Testament. And it is to their credit that they not only did this, but took from that version much that was good, though with no other acknowledgment than a gib. Other changes were due to the study of two new Latin versions, that by Arius Montanus of the Old Testament printed in Antwerp Polyglot, and that by Tremelius of the Old and New Testament, with the Apocrypha by his son-in-law Franciscus Junius. Yet others from the Geneva French version, 1587-88, Dioti's Italian, 1607, and the Spanish, 1602, of Cipriano de Valera. These three foreign translations seem to have attracted considerable attention, as they are mentioned not only in the preface, but by Selden, in whose table talk we read clearly of the meeting of the final board of 12, that, and here's a quote, "The translators in the King James time took an excellent way that part of the Bible was given to him who is most excellent in such a tongue, as the Apocrypha to Andrew Downes, and then they met together, and one read the translation, the rest holding in their hands some Bible, either of the learned tongues, or French, Spanish, Italian, etc. If they found any fault, they spoke. If not, he read on." Whether the wonderful felicity of phrasing should be attributed to the dexterity with which, after meanings had been settled in the important words in each passage chosen, either the board of 12 or the two final revisers put their touches to the work, or whether, as it seems more likely, the rhythm, first called into being by Tyndall and Coverdale, reasserted itself after every change, only gathering strength and melody from the increasing richness of the language, none can tell. All that is certain is that the rhythm and strength and the melody are there. The Bible of 1611, being only a revised edition, was not entered on the stationer's registers, nor have we any information as to the month in which it was issued. In its original form, it is a handsome, well-printed book, set up apparently with newly cast type, yielding a clean and sharp impression, and on excellent paper. It begins with an engraved title page, signed C. Boyle Fessett Enrichment, i.e. by Cornelius Boyle, an Antwerp artist, who about this time produced portraits of the Queen, the Princess Elizabeth, and Prince Henry. In the upper panel, S.S. Peter and James sit, holding between... Anyway, they talk about the picture on the title page.